In 1993, Queen Latifah told you and me, no, let me quit. I ain't even about to spit bars like this on y'all. Y'all ain't even ready for it. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ebony Janice. I go by Ebony Janice, which means that you should call me Ebony Janice. And this is a pre-jab. This is a hip-hop womanist sermon series. And today I'm obviously talking about Queen Latifah, U.N.I.T.Y. I want to say a couple things about U.N.I.T.Y. Queen Latifah is very important to me in the conversation of really fleshing out a black liberation or womanist theological understanding of who it is that we're supposed to be. The song U.N.I.T.Y. She says, love a black man from infinity to infinity, love a black woman from infinity to infinity. And so right there, Queen Latifah is already saying like, no, we're not just going to love a black man. This is not just a pick me song. This is also a love a black woman from infinity to infinity. But then Queen Latifah does really good theological work. She doesn't just leave it at love a black man from infinity to infinity. She fleshes out the issues, the problems that we have in relationship with each other. You know, calling me a bitch or a hoe, you know, all of that got to go. You know, now don't get me wrong, with exceptions is cool. So she's like talking about like, who do you think you are? He grabbed me, what'd she say? Calling out my name. I give respect to those who disrespect me. So I'm talking. One day I'm walking down the block. I had my cutoff shorts on, right? Because it was crazy hot. I walked past these dudes when they passed me. One of them felt my booty. He was nasty. I turned around red. Yes, Queen Latifah. Anyways, that she really is like troubling hip hop in the 90s, you know, misogyny, misogynoir. She's really troubling in the 90s, but she's not saying let's throw them away. She's saying I'm going to love you, but also let's be reality about what this relationship needs to look like. And what it has been, it cannot remain that. And she is like all these years later, what, 40 years later, goodness gracious, 40, almost 40 some years later, Queen Latifah is still fleshing out, you know, what it means to be in a black femme body and to be multiple and to love black men and to love black women from infinity to infinity and to also, you know, be excellent. And what can we really learn from that? That is more than just a nice lesson, that from a womanist perspective or from a black liberation perspective. Black liberation theology was never just thinking about theology, was never thinking about the Bible, was never just thinking about sacred text. It was thinking about the wholeness of its people, because we understand from this black liberation theology perspective that God desires for us to be whole. Same thing with womanism. Black womanist theologians were saying it's not possible that God wasn't thinking about black women. And then here comes Queen Latifah in this sacred text saying God is thinking about all of us. And it's important for us to love each other from infinity to infinity. But even beyond that, now how do we stretch that all these years later? How do we hear love a black man, love a black woman? And how do we be inclusive to make sure that we are including gender non-conforming people, that we are including folk who just identify in a different way, and that we stop holding on to these mandates or these, you know, namings that make us feel so uncomfortable. My name is Ebony Janice. I go by Ebony Janice, which means that you should call me Ebony Janice. That is just a thing that I feel like you can understand, you can hear, and you can respect. So if somebody tells you, my name is this, I go by this, which means that you should call me this, what is your resistance to that? Troubling your resistance to that is also inside of Queen Latifah saying, like, now don't get me wrong, with exceptions, it's cool, right? Queen Latifah is fleshing out the nuance and the context of, you know, different relationships, and we must do that in our community in order for us to actually be able to be whole, well, and free. I wore myself out a little bit, and nobody coming to wipe my brow, bring me no grape drink. I think that's very weird. Either way, you better preach, Eb.